All right, well, welcome everyone to our October POGO session. It's very good to see all of you here. I'd like to begin by reminding you that this session is recorded, but hopefully your computer has told you this already. Obviously we didn't have a meeting in September because we were all busy with the Social Outcomes Conference. Thank you very much indeed to those of you who took part in that, either as panelists or as audience members. And there are recordings available if you missed that. How could you possibly have missed it? But if you did miss it, you can watch what we did. And in the email that came around, there are some links to those recordings. So do please take a look if you haven't seen those already. So today's session is particularly focused on innovation, and it is going to be co-chaired by Malcolm Harbour, who is a loyal and long-standing member of the POGO Club. Malcolm, as many of you will know, is a former MEP, a former member of the European Parliament, and is an advisor to Connected Places Catapult, focusing on innovation and procurement. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Malcolm, who's going to introduce the panel and the discussion. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you very much, Anne. Well, it's a real privilege to be allowed to do this, and so thank you very much to the POGO team. You've had a fairly comprehensive outline about the things we want to talk about, so I'm not going to make a lot of opening remarks, but just to say that the particular word I used in my introduction was strategically, because I think we're at a stage now where the deployment of public procurement as a strategic tool, particularly to tackle the big issues of the day like global warming, is probably the most predominant, but there are others as well, I think has been rising up the political agenda. And I think it's very useful to discuss with leading practitioners. So I'm really pleased to have assembled together a team who are really experienced in that area. But before that, I just particularly wanted to mention the fact that I'm pleased to say that we have established Connected Places in conjunction with the University of Birmingham and the University of Manchester, a consortium for research in strategic public procurement, otherwise known as CRISP. And we've just started, we're in the ground, we're in the foothills of that work so far. But I'm really delighted that Oishi Kundu, who's she's recently been awarded her PhD for her work on procurement, and is one of our leading researchers there, is going to present some of our initial work. And then we're going to hear from expert practitioners. So Anne Schreiber's from Flanders, and having been based in Brussels, I've visited them quite regularly because I'm really impressed about what they've been doing. And then Greg, again, has spoken at other events for me as well, because what Wales is doing, I think, is really important. Vil from Finland, and with our competence centre, is well known, and indeed Finland is benchmarked really at the top of the list for procurement. And then Sasha Hasselmeyer, I think, has spoken at these meetings before, and he and I also go back some way. And I'm hoping he'll give us a perspective about work in particularly in US cities and states as well, so that we have a truly international perspective. And each of them is going to talk to you for about 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to have discussion. Please put your questions and comments in the chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. And if you want to ask a question, you can use the raise hands button, and I'll also keep an eye on that and try and call you. So without more ado then, let's move on to the presentations, and I'm going to invite Oishi to start.
Thank you, Malcolm. Here we go. So good afternoon, and I'll present some brief remarks on behalf of the consortium. It's a good time to talk about procurement. The UK government green paper on public procurement and other policy notes suggest a keen interest in making the most of public spending And as a researcher, this is exciting to observe, but we also wanted to establish what are the knowns and unknowns when it comes to innovative and strategic procurement. Basic question first, why should public authorities purchase innovation? There are many reasons, but the following three are prominent in both academic and non-academic writings. One, innovation can help address societal challenges we are facing, the climate crisis, managing public health, transforming our energy and transport networks, to name just a few. Innovation is linked to economic prosperity and progress and is therefore considered desirable by society and governments. And since procurement is about meeting public needs, innovation-friendly procurement can help public authorities meet public needs more effectively, efficiently, with more modern tools. While we have consensus over the meaning of public procurement and even some agreement on what is innovation, there are many ways of describing innovation procurement. So public technology procurement is an early articulation which combines innovation policy with procurement policy. Then we have strategic procurement, which also emphasizes the role of demand. The research, as you might infer, is rather disproportionately spearheaded by innovation policy researchers who noticed the frustration among policymakers regarding innovation policy tools, and they therefore looked at procurement, the articulation of government demand, the market influencing power of public spending as a potentially powerful tool. However, not much consensus on what to call this public involvement in innovation through procurement. So we have two deceptively similar terms, public procurement of innovation and public procurement for innovation, which have actually led to two different research directions within the PPI community. And finally, we have the term innovation-friendly public procurement, which refers to practices and competencies in public authorities that ensure innovative solutions are not excluded or disadvantaged during procurement. The ambiguity over innovation procurement concepts creates some challenges in research, especially in identifying innovation procurement practices. And here I'll give a quick summary of some quantitative research methods and approaches that can be found. For example, there's several studies on innovation procurement which use business and innovation surveys. They collect information from firms, asking them whether they participated in public contracts and whether those contracts required innovation. Then there are tender notices and contract award notices, which serve as information on procurement activity. And some studies, like the recent European Commission PwC report on strategic procurement, used text analysis to identify innovation procurement among these notices. Many academic researchers over the years have collected information on government spending data, government procurement expenditures, and noted its effects on private R&D expenditure, suggesting that government procurement increases investment towards innovation and not just innovation itself. In terms of impact, researchers have noted positive and significant effects on firm turnover, increased SME participation and competitiveness, introduction or adoption of product and process innovation at the firm level, adoption of environmental innovations, new venture creation, entrepreneurship. Further, some researchers have also extracted information from patent databases, since patents are an indicator of innovation or new technology. And they have noted the role of public procurement in A, the creation of a patent, but B, the creation of further patents, suggesting that procurement leads to general purpose technologies. So as you can see here, we don't seem to have many ways of distinguishing innovation procurement from regular public procurement, which is one of our research concerns. And to conclude, we present a future research agenda to strengthen the policy and practice around procurement and innovation. So for example, developing and agreeing upon a classification system to differentiate innovative and strategic procurement practice, which would help us better understand their prevalence, their costs and benefits. And I look forward to hearing from other panelists and members about this idea. Secondly, local procurement. Procurement happens at different levels of government, and existing data sources do not adequately capture the local element. So we don't know enough about the local networks and effects. And thirdly, measuring the impact of pre-commercial procurement and innovation contests in a more systematic manner, following the bidding parties to note effects of public demand-side support on firm performance and innovativeness. Much of this hinges on availability and accessibility of data, something that perhaps we need to work towards collectively as a procurement community. And that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and I'll hand it back to Malcolm.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Oishi. And there are already some notes in the chat, which is good, asking about the scope and direction of our work. I mean, we are primarily working in the UK at the moment, but we obviously look very closely at what's going on in Europe as well. So we're just at the early stages of this work. But I hope that you'll be able to support this in future as we go forward. So that, I think, has been a good orientation to begin with about what we described as the knowledge gap or the research gap around innovation procurement. So we're now going to hear from some very distinguished practitioners about the approach they've taken. So I'm delighted to invite Anne Schrijvers to make a start. And as you know, that she is one of the senior team in Flanders who are working on the innovation procurement in Flanders.
Wait.
Right, we got yours.
I kind of lost you, but well, do you see the screen I shared?
Yes, we can see it, your slides very well.
And you can hear me well. Well, I cannot see you. I can't see the questions, but well, you take care of that. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm very happy to be here present today with you. And I was asked by Malcolm and Lee to introduce you to the Program for Innovation Procurement, which is the program that was launched by the government of Flanders in 2016-17 in order to stimulate the procurement of innovative solutions. And so it's a program, so we have a dedicated team and a dedicated budget of up to 5 million a year. But Malcolm and Lee asked me not to focus that much on this kind of basic information on how we set up the policy. And wait, oh, is it working? Oh, can I go to the next slide?
Yes.
Yes, am I going to the next slide? I can't see what I'm doing here. It's so strange that it, wait.
Your slide hasn't changed yet.
It's not changed?
No.
Oh, and can you? Remote control.
Oh.
Oh, that's, oh, so I cannot move. Now? Did I move?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I was asked not to focus on this kind of information. That's on my second slide, or neither focus on what is already in our portfolio, what kind of innovative projects. I mean, all the information on these 3 slides is also on our website, so you might check it yourself. But I was kindly asked by Malcolm and Lee to kind of introduce you to the so-called integrated hands-on approach we developed in the last 4 or 5 years, and how we, with this approach, we try to make innovation procurement happen in Flanders. And before I embark with you on such a PIP journey, perhaps I want to give you my key takeaway of today. Well, innovation procurement, as far as we are concerned within the PIP program, it is not about the procedures. And that's quite, I think, a provocative statement. But what we mean is that what we see is that people talking about innovation procurement, they associate immediately innovation partnerships or competitive dialogues or pre-commercial procurements and all kinds of complex legal procedures that exist. And they, by concentrating on that, they neglect somehow what really matters, according to us, in innovation procurement. So the key elements of innovation procurement, I want are not about the procedures, but are on other elements. And by taking you on this PIP journey, I hope to convince you of that fact, because we believe that there's much room for creativity and innovation in the mainstream negotiation procedures that exist within the Act, the Procurement Act. So I'll take a deep breath. I hope you can see the trajectory slide now. Okay, and I would suggest that you all imagine yourself working in a public service somewhere in Flanders. You have ideas to improve your services, to kind of find answers to grand challenges. For example, you're managing lock gates, you're in charge of maintenance of lock gates, and you see opportunities that might help you to come to what we call predictive maintenance of lock gates, of predictive or structural health monitoring. And well, you have this idea about perhaps when you're working in another office and you want to get more data on how people move in public spaces, all these kind of ideas you have as a public officer, and then you have this idea, you see in your mailbox that there is a call from the PIP program, you attend the info session we organize, you find a template online, and in this template, we kind of guide you on how you can make this initial kind of wild idea into a real PIP project proposal. And you just have to basically answer 5 questions. What do you want to procure? Why do you want to procure it? Where do you think you can procure it? And what kind of impact do you want to reach? And what kind of resources, what kind of team do you have? So that's all that information you put very short in the proposal. You come and pitch it. Yeah, there's a jury, and that jury will evaluate your proposal positively, of course. And then you become like a so-called PIP member. And what happens then? It's like we have a team of up to 5 FTEs, and we will sit together with you to see how mature the project is. And basically, many public organizations we cooperate with nowadays, they always think that their project is very mature and very well prepared, and that they can skip the so-called blue phase and immediately go over to the procurement phase. But in practice, we see that even in their project proposal, they're not capable of answering the basic questions of what you want and where you can buy it. And as we're talking about innovation, where you cannot find it on the market. If you talk about innovation, innovative solutions, something new has to be in the innovation. So you should be able to demonstrate in your project proposal, well, that it's not available on the market yet, and it still needs some development or validation. And so all these immature projects, we sit together with them, and then we say like, hey, it's too immature to start procurement. You have to prepare it better. And basically we hire then consultants that will help the public sector organization to better define its needs and better define the scope of the project. What are they looking for whom? Who are the end users? Who are the stakeholders? And what do they want? What do they wish? What does the ideal solution should be capable of? What kind of functional requirements or functionalities should the ideal solution for these kind of needs have? And that happens in workshops with end users and stakeholders, facilitated by the consultants. And it ends up, yes, Malcolm, sorry.
I was going to encourage, just to get you to hurry up slightly.
Oh,
but,
to carry.
no, it's
okay,
fine.
then
It's very good.
Fine. Okay, then I try to hurry up. So they make up a big wish list of all so-called functionalities, required, desired functionalities, and they kind of do not only make the list, but they also prioritize the wish list. And then with this list, we ask the consultant to explore the market and look for solutions, partial solutions, and look for suppliers that might be capable of meeting the demands and developing the new product, or well, capable of matching the needs. And that market analysis ends up in a list of possible suppliers, possible solutions, and we invite all these suppliers, be it knowledge institutions, be it companies, to participate in a public open market consultation where they sit together with their competitors. We present them the list of all the needs, of all the desired wishes, and we ask them how feasible they are in development time, in risks, in when it comes to the budget, etc. And then these insights we report. I mean, the consultants do that. They write a report and they summarize all the insights we get from this preparatory phase. And so it's a list, it gives all the info, and it's a public report. We publish it on our website so that also the companies that could not attend the market consultation can still gain the insights from that exercise. Mm-hmm. The report and the advice that give us all the insights we need to define a strategy. When there is still much risk involved, we need to, for example, develop a prototype or a proof of concept. Or when things already exist on the market but are not yet validated in the concrete concrete setting, we might need a pilot, and we need to put up a tender for a pilot. So that's all. Or we need some parallel testing depending on the risks. And we first define the strategy, and then next step is, of course, to write a tender, to choose the procedure. But normally choosing the procedure, well, it all naturally comes, all the information you need for the tender is already prepared in the needs analysis and in the open market consultation. So and in the public report. So many clauses that you use in the tender are already well prepared. All the insights from the preparatory phase you can use to kind of draft up your tender. You have to run the procedure, of course, and then award a contract, and then implementation can start, and it can take a variation of forms. And I think where we make the difference is basically in the blue and in the red phase. PIP is very present in these two phases. We co-finance and we we help public sector organizations to make it happen. And to summarize, but I keep it up for the debate afterwards. It's not about the procedures, but it's basically about the elements I try to summarize as quickly as possible in a nutshell.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much indeed for that really practical engagement. Great. So any questions for Anne, please put them in the chat. So I'm now going to invite Greg to share a screen and to talk to us about what they've been doing in Wales for some time now.
Yeah. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Green. I'm working in the innovation team within Welsh Government, head of R&D projects. So I was just trying to give the story of how we started using public procurement to drive innovation. So I'll just go through it hopefully with some useful examples to show how we got there. Right, how can I advance?
Is it we've got your first slide.
Still on first slide.
Yeah.
Right. Next. Okay. So, basically we're championing the adoption of SBRI, Small Business Research Initiative, which is obviously a form of pre-commercial procurement and a variation of the US SBIR. So if we just take in the SBRI bits from there, I've just sort of modified that into the Welsh story in terms of scale, buy-in / commitment, how we resourced it, and impact. So scale, there's little knowledge or use of SPRI in the public sector in Wales when we first started out. And there's even fewer Welsh businesses succeeding in national SPRI competitions. In Wales, we're spending £6 billion a year on procurement, but obviously we've still got bumps in the road that need to improve, or there's issues which we could be doing better. The innovation in the public sector was pretty much risk averse at the time. So we wanted to encourage them to move along and have a look at these types of products. And obviously we were engaged with Innovate UK, the national body for the innovation in the UK, and that we wanted to have opportunities to leverage support with them. So where did it all start? We had digital tourism colleagues were working on a project around the launch of the All Wales Coast Path, which was a unique footpath around the coast of Wales, which was apparently one of the first in the world. So they wanted to make a big impact on that in terms of communities, businesses, and travellers. So it was a very small, modest budget around apps and digital type media. So we learned a lot in that process, but we acknowledged that we needed to increase scale. So with some funding in place, we managed to run a number of challenges over the forthcoming years. We've done from road safety, predictive policing, health, portable energy renewable, invasive species, metal mine water treatments, energy efficiency in old and historic buildings, protecting upland watercourses, lots of health data, and you capturing data once in the patient flow, recycling things like mattresses, and one on affordable nutritious food as well. That experience put us in good stead to work with the UK government on the GovTech challenges. We managed to take £5 million from the £20 million available. We had projects around rural isolation. We had one around tackling a tracking solution for firefighters post Grenfell, which was very well received. And we had using council fleet vehicles as the eyes and ears, putting the sensors and monitoring data on those vehicles as they went around the boroughs and highways, and also Torvine Council on social care improvements in digital technologies. And then obviously came COVID, and so we found that SPRI was a great tool to help respond to the COVID challenge. And the top left there, we had one around the rapid sanitization of ambulances once they've carried a COVID patient, because in parts of rural Wales, an ambulance could be out of service for up to 4 hours. So we wanted really something to address that. And we had some fantastic results with some sanitizing technologies. We worked with the MOD on that particular one. And then obviously better lives closer to home. We wanted to have communities come back and initiatives to help drive local traffic to local businesses who were affected by the closures. And then we had one from our dentistry colleagues about aerosol generating procedures and the fitment of generic masks. So there was a better mask challenge, better fit mask there. And also health ones around simulation technology, because doctors and specialists were missing out on operations because of the backlog and closures. They were falling behind on their training hours. So we wanted to have some simulation training to help those professionals. We acknowledge that SPRI is not always the best tool as well. So we did a lower sort of level, which was in the form of hack. So we did a health hack, and then we did an agri hack as well. So again, slightly different, but also trying to get innovation into those public sector areas. So the buy-in, the public sector acknowledged the opportunities. They always mention the budget constraints of trying out the SPRI route, but we provided the catalyst funding and that removed the barriers. We realized that senior cover is essential. We had to engage with the procurement community quite early on. We spoke at their events and engaged, we had some reference sites. We had to convince public bodies that they need to free up resources to ensure that thing is delivered. And we wanted to encourage them to own the problem and not define a specification, because otherwise then we're just into traditional procurement. So it's a new way of working, and we hopefully optimize the win-win situation as well. So within my team, again, it's very similar to Flanders, it's very small. We're focused on external innovation funding. I created a focus role within the team. We secured a budget from Welsh Government, and then we also secured on the early rounds some co-funding from Innovate UK. And then once we got under steam, we managed to get some money from central government departments because they acknowledged that issue in Wales was also an issue for them. So they put money into the budgets as well. We created an ambassadors network. We developed a toolkit, back office, frameworks, FAQs, all the advice and guidance that goes, the wraparound support to help, we became a facilitator rather than a, hands-on deliverer. So again, just a few slides, we've given recognition to those people taking forward challenges, working as a group. They shared common issues and overcome challenges themselves. On the bottom left, we created the SBRI Centre of Excellence, which is funded by our health colleagues because of the demand in health. And then the Cardiff Capital Region, they actually pinched one of my team to set up their £10 million challenge fund as well. So the impact, we used to offer 100% funding to the challenge owners, but then as we got more experience and they acknowledged the benefits, we reduced the funding down to 80, even down to 40%. So they had some skin in the game, but we always help them find some other partners to put some money in. Health colleagues set up their own fund. So we created the Centre of Excellence. We also advised on the UK government on setting up the GovTech programme in the early days. So the £10 million Cardiff City deal is now in place. What we've done, we've presented to Ireland and a number of countries. I was involved in an Interreg programme, and the approach we got acknowledged as an example of best practice. So far, we've connected over 26 public sectors challenge owners. We've had over 700 applicants. We've awarded over £8 million in contracts. And interesting, from the economic benefit for Wales, from a very low base, we've over 40 businesses from Wales have benefited. And we've won some awards from government opportunities, the affordable nutritious food, and the rapid sanitising of ambulances. A little bit of feedback from some of the challenge owners and some of the businesses. My favourite one is the bottom on the nurse in time challenge, where they wanted their challenge was to have 10% more value-added nurse in time, and the digital solutions that they proceeded to go ahead with freed up 28 or 26% more time for nurses. And the senior nurse was the most exciting thing that happened to her in 20 years of nursing. So it was a really powerful outcome. So again, South Wales Police, companies are exported, companies have gone into new markets, is really, really good experience for all of them. And I think we're a big fan of SBRI in Wales, and coincidentally, it's a Welsh word for fun as well. So we like to make a song and dance bit from there. So I'll draw it to a close there.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed. It's very exciting, and actually showing the range of types of projects you've been working on and the potential there. I think is really fantastic. Well, we're running a bit behind time, but I didn't want to cut short these great presentations. But so I'm now going to hand over to Ville now to talk about the situation in Finland. So are you going to show us a few slides as well? Yes. There's a slide coming up.
All right, do you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Excellent. Yeah, happy to be on board here to share you with some insights and experiences from Finland about public procurement of innovation, and particularly the strategic use of it to advance the big challenges solution. I'll try to be brief. So first few words about the procurement policy in Finland as regards Finland is that we now seem to have quite a solid background. We have the present government's 10% target for all procurement being innovative. We have it as one of the key priorities in national procurement strategy, and there's also a specific action plan for innovation procurement. So that gives us a leverage to advance on these topics. There's also a financial support program available since already more than 10 years now, which seems to resemble quite a lot the one that Anne was presenting from Flemish government. I believe they've funded over 100 cases already, and during the recent years they've been heavily focused on innovation partnership projects. So there are some quite exciting results there as well. And then we have more recent information and advisory services, particularly the KEINO Competence Center for Sustainable Innovative Procurement that I've been intensely working with. And I'm going to share a few words about that. There's also another one on the expertise for impact investing hosted by the Ministry of Employment and Economy, which is a complementary tool in terms of the social impact bonds and similar instruments. So a few words about the KEINO. It's a network competence center, meaning that it's sort of a joined up arrangement consisting of 6 organizations. And I think it's been quite nice way to draw different types of resources and combine the expertise across the government. So what we have here is a collaboration between Central Procurement Agency, the Key Innovation Funding Agency, Sustainability Promotion Agency, 2 research institutes, including the one where I'm working, the VTT, which is a technical research center, and the Municipalities Federation. And we have a sort of a 20 persons core group, which is on a daily basis providing these KEINO services and activities. And in addition, there's another 20, 30 people contributing in on-demand specific targets and tasks. So we have quite a number of pool of people that we can bring to meet specific needs coming up from the cities, municipalities, hospitals, and central government agencies. And what we practically do is that now we're just closing the 4th year of activities now, and this is the menu at the moment. We provide advisory services on demand basis, but also through specific programs such as low carbon procurement development program. We are running different facilitated buyers groups for various topics. There are also a couple of voluntary green deals that have been done, for instance, on zero emission construction sites. And then we are running capacity building exercises. And we just launched quite an exciting program, a small pilot on Innovation Procurement Academy. So what we want to address is exactly the strategic use of public procurement in advancing innovation as a tool to meet the big challenges and also the needs that the government procurement agencies are facing, perhaps related to carbon neutrality, aging society, different types of sectoral needs and topical challenges. Then we also have a network of regional activities. We are now running an innovation progress broker service, which is more hands-on, sort of connecting between the supply and demand. That is now running on 2 domains, social and health and construction and real estate. And we also have a network of 12 regional change agents covering 15 regions at the moment. So if you look at the map on the right-hand side on the Finland, you can see that we are covering most of the country at the moment through these agents. And now there's quite nice discussion ongoing how to leverage this kind of regional outreach for even more strategic use and strategic targets as regards the use of recovery funds and also what we call here the regional ecosystems that have been prioritizing different challenge areas such as circularity or health technology. So each region has these priorities, and now we're in the process of finding out how to support them in conducting innovation procurement on these topics. And then we also run measurement and evaluation activities that are very much in the field of what Oishi was already presenting as the research gaps. So we have the procurement data, tender analysis. We are conducting some surveys, both for the buyer side and also for the supplier side. And we are now also looking at the sort of big data issues. So that's brief overview of the KEINO Competence Center. And just as a final flash, I will show some of the ways that we are now also trying to connect the big challenges that have been identified at our institute in terms of how the procurement can contribute to low carbon vehicles and transport services, to smart and sustainable public buildings, urban infrastructure, energy systems, hydrogen society, reuse of materials, public infrastructure, water and waste management, cybersecurity, health, personalized medicine, these types of topics. So there's a way to connect these, but it takes a lot of effort, and also it is a tremendous management challenge to bring these threads together. But I think we are much better equipped now than we used to be some 5 years ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, that was again really fascinating. I want everybody to gain from the presentation, so I'm afraid we're a bit squeezed for questions. But Sasha is not going to show you some slides, but I hopefully will share a few good words with us, and then if we have time, we'll take some questions. But I have been monitoring the chat quite carefully, and of course you will get copies of the slides, and we'll be able to carry on the dialogue outside the meeting. Hopefully that's the whole idea of the POGO Club anyway. So Sasha.
Yes, thank you, Malcolm. And I'll talk about some of the findings we had for a report. So I paste the link here in the chat if you want to look into it. The report is called Serving the Citizens, Not Bureaucracy. And I think the guiding question we had was, for global cities, is public procurement serving the public needs, or is it serving the needs of the bureaucracy? And we were a kind of sub-question that we were interested in was the question of how do procurement teams deal with the trade-offs implied in decisions when you have to trade off between buying local and buying quality, or innovating and maybe giving preference to minority or women-owned businesses, and so forth. So we were really interested in kind of what is underpinning this. Global cities spend about 8% of world GDP every year on procurement, about $5.6 trillion. And we present in the report a vision for 2030, which is to make public procurement a public service. And what we mean by that is, like any public service, we would expect procurement to have more citizen participation, a strong societal mission that has clear objectives in and of itself, and a kind of new type of culture, public-facing and outcome-focused culture that also nurtures a new ecosystem of suppliers, but also kind of uses new approaches of performance management. And procurement needs investment. In the US in particular, procurement teams are largely reduced to clerical administrative functions, and they're underfunded by about 30% on average, which really means there's no room for innovation or opening up. On the topic of innovation, we use data we collected on 4 countries, the UK, Ireland, Canada, and the US, to establish that less than 0.5% of all municipal procurements can be classified as being innovative or open to new ideas. And that is despite 3,000 cities declaring climate emergencies. And I think it's quite important to see that we're faced with these really, really big challenges, and yet the money doesn't seem to be moving that way. There are also big national differences. The UK at municipal level is 4 times as innovative as the US, by example, and has a much more decentralized spread of innovation capacity than in the US, where it's centralized in a handful of cities. I want to kind of not take up too much time here, but I'll wrap up with probably the most controversial topic in the report and when we held the interviews, which was around citizen engagement. We had really 2 groups of practitioners. About 60% of the practitioners we interviewed and leaders around the world said they want more citizen participation. They think public procurement should follow the path of other public services that become more user engaged. And about 40% of practitioners said, no, procurement is complex, it's expert, it should be quietly running in the background, and citizens shouldn't know about it. We recommend that citizens should be involved at every stage of the procurement process and should in fact be involved in determining the mission and purpose of procurement in and of itself. And that the more you involve citizens, it becomes a driver for innovation in and of itself. We outline in the report how that can work, how citizens can be involved at every stage of the way, and then also look at the outcomes in terms of the dividend you get on greater participation from small businesses, more diversity, cost savings, and so forth. So I'll stop here to give us a little bit of time for discussion. Thank you, Malcolm.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for the report as well. I want to actually to pick up your last point about citizens' engagement and sort of co-decision making, and perhaps ask our speakers particularly about how citizens have been engaged in their projects. So maybe Anne might like to start with that. I mean, how does that feature in some of your work if people want to do some sort of citizens consultation as part of that preparatory work that you outlined very cogently in your slides?
Well, I think, well, we focus on the end users and the stakeholders and from public services that are, well, citizens. And we try to, well, engage with them in like the phase of the needs assessment. So that can be in workshops, but often it can be with surveys. Like there's a project on it's about the teachers and the teachers card, and then we send out surveys to different teachers, so they were involved in the needs analysis, and that was, well, also in workshops. And I think it's a key for the application later to become a success, because if you develop an application, you should also assure a smooth uptake for the ones who have to use it, for example.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Greg, because I know that you've done a very wide range of projects, and some of them perhaps have been involving citizens directly. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, you're right. This, where we would get involved, we would expect that engagement to have taken place before the public sector body comes into us with their expression of interest for the challenge. So be part of the assessment process, the panel discussion, whether they had considered the citizen engagement. And the one that springs to mind was pre-COVID was the vaccinations for MMR, where there was misinformation or disinformation about low vaccine take-up in parts. And so we encourage the health board to do a significant amount of citizen engagement to actually get some real data before, and then all of a sudden COVID came along and we had to modify that particular EOI to there. But yeah, we do encourage it, but we would pass it on to the challenge owner.
Thank you. Vila, I mean, I'd quite like you to comment on that, but there was also a question in the chat about your innovation broking concept and how that works, which you mentioned in your slide. So could you perhaps just say a bit about that?
Yes, we're still in quite an early stage. So we've just started this autumn in practice. And so far, what we're doing is we are working in partnership with a few regional and thematic sort of knowledge hubs. So one is a hospital development unit, and the other one is a construction sector innovation hub, and they are sort of they're working with us to identify innovation procurement opportunities, and we have a short list of cases that we're now looking into more detail, and in the first stage, what we're doing is basically doing very much the kind of work that Anne was also describing in her slide on the sort of early stage design and identification of the need and that sort of work. So we're working on refining the concept and looking at it from a challenge driven and outcome driven perspective. So just to give you an example, is a medical technology procurement case upcoming where the hospital is wishing to move towards an outcome-based or value-based procurement arrangement, and we're helping them in conducting that. In the later stage, we aim to open the discussion and process for the market engagement, and we also have some plans in how to bring also the market data on the process, but we're not yet there, and we are currently also scanning the different sources of data, what kind of sources of information and intelligence can we bring on the table to support that process. So that's where at the moment, and it looks very promising, but still it's in early stage. And if it works, certainly we would like to then scale it up to other sectors.
Good, yeah. Now Anne has kindly offered me a bit of extra time. So what I'm going to do is to use that by inviting all of you to just leave perhaps one big idea with us. So we'll start with Sasha, and so you have a minute to just say what is the big learning from this process that we should be following up, because I hope this will just be the start of our engagement in this whole piece of work. Sasha.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yes. So I think I really liked Anne's point that procedures are not the central thing here. And I want to also highlight a point I think Nigel just made in the chat, that citizen engagement, we're already not practicing that very well in government, and what we call citizen engagement often isn't. So the real learning for me here has been that not only do we need to bring citizen engagement into procurement, but we actually need to bring the right type of citizen engagement into procurement and really treat citizens as experts to be involved in the process.
Good. Will, your thought? Hello?
Yes. I think what we're seeing here is that there's several ways to connect the procurement with the challenges, as we can see from the examples from different countries. I see lots of similarities in the ways that how it's been approached, about the tools and also the methods, and also the sort of practical procedures. But still, I would think that there's still quite a lot of work to be done in really finding the ways how to sequence these things in a way that we can truly say that we are contributing to solving these problems. So that's where we're at the moment in Finland, that we have quite a number of very sort of encouraging pilots ongoing, but how to move to the more strategic level in making the claim that we are really contributing to solving the problems and also making a visible impact.
Thank you. Greg?
There's a couple of things. One is the aversion to risk in the public sector, and innovation is risky and not everything succeeds as it's supposed to. So acknowledging that there will be some honorable failures rather than always fantastic successes. And also the role of academia in working with some of the challenges, getting universities and RTOs to have more of a mission approach to the grand challenges as well.
Yeah, good. Anne Schreibers, because we have Chairman Anne also, but Anne.
I could unmute myself. Well, I found it very inspiring. What I picked up is, we have the same challenge as Phil already told us, like how do we upscale the pilots, the prototypes, and all the other smaller innovation procurements that public sector organizations want to run with us. How do we do that? So that's an open question. We are looking for good solutions to bring it to the next level. When it comes to the risk averseness of the public sector, I think the same is true for the citizens. In many of our technology innovation projects, we communicate and we put effort in communicating with citizens, but then still it's sometimes, well, they perceive technology innovation in the public space as negative. So you can engage them, but that does not buy in them, or how should I put it? So I'm looking for solutions like that. You can have negative press coverage dealing with it can then, and I think, well, I found the Welsh example also very inspiring, although I think it's like the SBIR program, so it's a bit different from what we do. And then I look forward to reading the papers you just put on.
Thank you. So I'm going to give Oishi the last word, and thank you very much for speaking in public for the first time as a member of CRISP, actually. So I think there's obviously a lot of interest in what we're doing. So a quick final word from you.
Thank you. And I think in this discussion, this has been quite reaffirming for like all the work that we have been doing, and kind of makes it very exciting to come out and speak about it, especially about, yes, there's a lot to do, and there are different languages that we seem to be speaking when we're talking about these, talking about missions and innovation and how procurement can be used. But I think having such a discussion and hearing from everyone has been very helpful in, having all these perspectives in one place for a while.
Very good. Well, thank you all very much indeed. And I'm going to hand over to Anne now. Certainly in the chat, we've had some enthusiastic responses to this event and suggestions that we could devote a whole day to it. Well, maybe that's something for the future. But anyway, I'm going to hand back to Anne, and with thanks also for allowing us to organise this meeting under the guise of the POGO Club.
Well, thank you, Malcolm, for your efforts and for putting a great panel together, which, as you rightly point out, has stimulated a great deal of discussion. I'm sure it's something to which we'll be able to return in the future. Before I close the session, I'm going to hand over to Rory, who's got something to say about the contract template working group, an update on their work.
Just very briefly, thanks very much. A report out from the contracts template working group. We did publish a draft template for outcomes contract templates. I'm dropping the link in right now. For those of you at the conference, you may have heard something about this. This is for outcomes contracts, or SIBs, and it addresses things like, it was updated to address things like who the parties are, a focus on outcome payments rather than sort of service payments, sort of reporting and data strategy changes. We learned some things about sort of force majeure during the COVID-19, as well as default and termination clauses. It's updated as well to deal with things like GDPR and so on. If you are into SIBs and outcomes contracting, and this template may be helpful to you, about 20 different people worked on it. So if you want to use that, you are free to do so. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Our next meeting is on the 30th of November at 4 p.m. GMT. Our theme is going to be climate emergency, carbon reduction policies and sustainability policies being baked into public procurement. So if anyone on the call has new or exciting things to share, either from an academic or practitioner perspective on those topics, please email us and we will see what can be done. Maybe somebody could drop the email address into the chat for me. That's it. Thank you very much. So please email that address if you would like to volunteer any contributions for that session, which I hope is also going to be a hot topic for everyone. So that's it, just about finishing on time. Thank you very much, everyone. And thanks again for great panel, great discussion. And thanks to Malcolm for putting it all together.